Welcome back. All right, so I wanted to do a video today where we look at the National Hockey League and the season that they've had. This is without getting into actually reviewing the season. I will be doing that video soon, of course. But I wanted to take a look at the status of things because I do see in the comments and just online and sometimes in live streams as well the suggestion that certain teams would be better off if they just moved. The reality is the National Hockey League is in no danger of having to move a team. There's absolutely no chance of a team moving anytime soon that I can see on this board. Now, the way I've got this organized is by attendance from the most in attendance this season to the least. And the number for this season is in black on the left. The number for the season prior is in red on the right-hand side. And then the number underneath is the differential from last season to this season. And the first thing that stands out is Montreal went up by 6. That's it, 6. Their attendance went from 21,099 to 21,105. So 6 extra people in the building this year. And Montreal doesn't have a problem selling out. Neither does Detroit. Detroit went up to 19,345 on average this season from 18,980 the year before. So that's a difference of 365 in the positive. And then you got Chicago. They get a bump from the World Winter Classic. They go to 19,130 from 18,836. So they gained 294 on average. But again, they did have the Winter Classic at Wrigley Field. And it would appear that the outdoor games get added in and it can kind of throw things off as we'll see when we get to Columbus. Now Tampa, the same. They just sell out, 19,092. Nothing else to see here. Move along. Very predictable and very reliable. And there's Florida. We're not that far removed from people talking about how Florida is not going to support the team, it's not going to work. And I always said, hey, if they had a good team, we'll see. Well, now they have a pretty darn good team, back-to-back Stanley Cups. And their attendance went from 18,632 last season to 19,059 on average this year. That's an increase of 427 per game. So the Florida Panthers, very healthy, making good money. And all of the discussion about that market has kind of dried up at this point. I know it'll start up again when Florida, starts to struggle. But, yeah, it just kind of shows that a lot of the time when these teams aren't drawing attendance, it can have to do with the product on the ice. Columbus saw a big jump. I think it's the stadium game that causes this. They were at 18,935 this season, 17,016 last season. So that's an increase on average of 1,919. So with an increase of 1,919 due to, it's got to be the stadium game, it makes Columbus one of the best attended teams in the National Hockey League. But Columbus is one of those teams I see that argument of, they got to move that team. Why would they want to move the team out of Ohio? That's a huge market. They don't want to lose big markets, so Columbus sticks around. Toronto gained 40 fans per game above last season, so they went from 18,789 to 18,829. So while the Toronto faithful may not be happy with how the playoffs turned out, regular season, they definitely turn out in pretty large numbers. Vancouver did see a drop in their attendance, not by much. They went from 18,826 to 18,810 per game. And so, very, very little difference for the Vancouver Canucks, even though they missed the playoffs and they jacked up the prices. Carolina dropped by 3. They go from 18,798 per game to 18,795. So nothing major there for Carolina. Philly went up. They go from 18,438 to 18,525. That's an increase of 87 per game. The Minnesota Wild dropped a bit. They went from 18,529 to 18,430. That's a drop of 99 fans per game. Dallas dropped a bit as well. Kind of a surprise there. They go from 18,532 to 18,392. So that's a drop of 140 fans per game. The Edmonton dropped, but it's because they had the Heritage Classic there. They go from 19,173 per game to 18,347 per game, so that's a drop of 826. But that's the Heritage Classic that's going to skew the numbers there. The Washington Capitals went up. They went from 17,841 per game to 18,244 per game, or an increase of 403 fans per game. So the Washington Capitals, pretty strong season on the ice and pretty solid box office as well. The Colorado Avalanche, they dropped a little bit. just barely. From 18,103 to 18,067, so that's a drop of 36 fans per game. Nothing major there for Carolina. Vegas dropped, but not in the way that I think a lot of people are waiting. They're just waiting for that big drop. I don't think it's coming. Vegas went from 18,139 per game to 17,975. It's a drop of 164 fans per game. The Rangers dropped a little bit as well. They went from 17,983 down to 17,861. It's only 122 on average per game. Boston went up by 2. They went from 17,850 to 17,852 per game. So, sellouts, yep, Boston does sellouts well. St. Louis dropped a little bit. They went from 18,084 to 17,724, or a drop of 360 fans per game. The Calgary Flames went up. Who saw that coming? Who saw that happening, that the Flames, who by all accounts were going into some sort of retool or rebuild this season, saw an increase in their attendance? They went from 17,501 to 17,655, or an increase of 154 fans per game. Ottawa did see a drop, which is a surprise because they were in the playoffs. They went from 17,580 per game to 17,306 per game, or a drop of 274. Nashville went from 17,306 to 17,212. So they went from a playoff team to a disaster, and they only lost 94 fans per game. So kudos to Nashville for coming out. Nashville's a market as well. I remember people saying it's not going to work, they should be moved, and then they weren't. The LA Kings did see a drop this year. They go from 17,945 down to 17,196, a drop of 749 fans per game. Seattle did see a drop this year because they had the Winter Classic last year. So they go from 17,887 to 17,151, which I think is the capacity for Climate Pledge. They dropped 736 fans per game, largely because of the Winter Classic. The Pittsburgh Penguins saw a drop, and Pittsburgh does have a reputation when it comes to teams that aren't necessarily performing all that well, so we'll see what the numbers look like this year. But they dropped from 17,999 per game to 16,635, which is a drop of 1,274 fans per game. Definitely not inconsequential. The New Jersey Devils saw a drop because they had the stadium game last year. They go from 17,598 per game to 16,154 per game, a drop of 1,444. But once again, they had the stadium game last year, so that explains a lot of it. Buffalo went up. Buffalo actually drew more this year than last year. They went from 15,981 to 15,998. They went up by 17. So every time I see that, Buffalo should be moved in that market, I tell you it's not going to work. More fans came out to watch them this year than last year, even though the team still wasn't very good. I think Buffalo's an excellent market, and they need to put a team on the ice that can get to the playoffs for the first time since 2011. They'll sell that building out every night if that happens. The New York Islanders saw a drop. Stadium numbers in here apparently as well. They go from 18,099 per game to 15,979, so that's a drop of 2,120 fans per game. The Anaheim Ducks went up. They went from 15,687 to 15,806. That's a rise of 119 fans per game. And excitement is back in Anaheim for the first time in a very long time. I'm happy about it. It's nice to see, and we'll see how far they can take that this coming season. I would think we're going to see another jump in their attendance. The Winnipeg Jets did see that jump. They needed this, right? They went from 13,490 per game last year to 14,336 per game this year, which is a rise of 777 fans per game. The Winnipeg Jets did not lose money last season, which means they definitely made money this season as well. The Winnipeg Jets have never lost money in a season since returning back in 2011. So for the Winnipeg Jets, things are definitely going better than I think a lot of people are giving them credit for these days. The San Jose Sharks go from 13,559. They go up to 14,219, a rise of 660 fans per game. Macklin Celebrini selling tickets, so's Will Smith. There's a lot of San Jose players that are kind of exciting to watch right now, and I think San Jose is going to start going up in the standings pretty soon here. And then you got Utah. So you go from being in the mullet in Arizona, which was fun. Let's be honest. The mullet was kind of fun in the beginning. but they only had room for 4,600 fans per game. They moved to Salt Lake City, and last year they drew 11,131 fans per game, or a rise of 6,531 per game over what they were drawing in Arizona. So you can see that that move has had immediate implications for the NHL, the salary cap, and just the overall health of the league. And I think with Arizona moving to Utah, it leaves us in a position where we have 32 steady and stable markets and teams. So I honestly think that we're going to see these 32 teams. You might see an expansion team sooner or later added, but I don't see any reason to fear that any of these teams are going to be going anywhere anytime soon. For instance, the Canadian TV rights deal doubles next year, so we get another Sportsnet Plus increase in price. But I already talked about the NHL's attendance passing 23 million this year for the first time. But sponsorships went up 9%. I mentioned that in a news video this year. Sponsorships being up, advertising revenue being up, all around the league, everything is going up. So this is good news. Even in putting this together and getting notes on the board and everything, every article I looked at, if it was from 2020 or 2021, it was kind of dire and kind of along the lines of, okay, so the NHL is losing money, we're going to have a flat cap, there's going to be trouble. But any article over the last couple of years that has talked about the financial situation of the National Hockey League has been very rosy, very complimentary of how the league has done things, and I don't see any reason to argue with that at all. Franchise values also went up tremendously. We'll see what they are this November, but last November they went up an average of 37%. The league's franchises went up in value 37%. Great news for the owners. It has no effect on player salaries, but it's great news for the owners that their teams are worth that much more. One thing that has been said over the years is that NHL teams might be undervalued. There's not as much risk in investing in an NHL team as there might be with the NFL or other leagues in North America. So it's pretty good value for your team in the National Hockey League, and that's part of the reason franchise values went skyrocketing this year. And of course, the CBA has been extended through 2030. So the NHL's happy. The NHLPA seems to be happy as well. And all 32 teams, from what I can tell, are pretty satisfied with where they're at. There are some teams that would like to make trades. There's teams that would like to add, free agents, and free agents may not want to go to certain locations. But when it all is on the board in a nature like this, the league's doing pretty well. So we can get into individual markets another time, but this is more of just an overview of the league. You can see that ticket prices have gone through the roof, but ticket sales have stayed right about the same. And then you add Utah in place of Arizona, and that helps you get over the 23 million mark in a season. The National Hockey League, I have not seen the numbers yet for this year. They were $6.3 billion in revenues last season, so 2023-2024. The expectations have been around the $7 billion mark this year and maybe a little bit above, and those revenues are just supposed to keep going up. So for those of us who want to go and watch games live, it becomes a lot more expensive. That's kind of baked into all this. But the league's very healthy. They're doing quite well, and they're not having a problem selling those tickets. As long as the ticket sales stay roughly the same, ticket prices will keep going up. They will push that, and then once you start seeing the ticket sales drop a little bit, that's where the NHL would probably decide not to raise ticket prices further. But we'll see what happens. Let me know your thoughts on just the overall quality of the National Hockey League. I know there are teams on this board that people will, no, that market doesn't work. They got to move. They're not going to make any money. But the reality is almost every team in the NHL right now is in the black. They're almost all making money. I am sure there are a couple on the board that are not making a ton of money or not making any at all right now, but those would be the minority. So there you go. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Hit like and subscribe in the event you may not have done so already. I think it's an exciting time to follow the National Hockey League. And while I still stand by the video I did the other day, basically that, we may not have the parity in the NHL that we'd like, the reality is that the league is quite strong and fans are coming out in record numbers and paying record money. for those tickets as well. So thank you guys so much for all your support as always. If you haven't already hit like and subscribe, please do. That being said, I'm done for now. I will talk to you again soon.